Okay, hopefully the recording is on. So hi everybody, welcome to governance working group call number 9. I'm Lane. I'm going to be moderating this call. We have some new faces today, which is really exciting. I'm really excited to see some more folks joining us. So would people be okay if we do the intros? We haven't done them for a while. Maybe take 30-45 seconds to just briefly tell us your name and what you're working on, and maybe like your role in the Blockstack ecosystem. I'll just, in the interest of time, I'll go down the list as I see them on my screen. So Jason, do you want to go first?
Sure. So quick intro on my end. I've been a network admin for about 15 years. I stumbled across Blockstack early this year and I fell in love. So I've been learning a lot and been a big part of the community. For this initiative in particular, I help out a lot with managing the GitHub and just really enjoy watching this evolve and unfold as we're doing something new. So that's my quick intro.
Thank you, Jason. That was awesome. Let's go to Kieran. Am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Kieran. So I was interested in Blockstack from quite a while back, maybe a couple of years ago, looking at sort of storage stuff and identity stuff. And I looked the other day and some stuff from 2017, so quite a long time. So, and I've done some kind of fan writing about it and, kind of got closer and closer. Managed to get myself through the Zero to dApp course and got the t-shirt, which was hugely motivating. And kind of it got me dragged onto GitHub and kind of all up to relative speed with this. I'm really interested in governance, and kind of that's why I'm on this particular call. And other things too, specifically that.
Yeah, welcome. Great to have you. Thanks for joining us. I love the t-shirt story. That's so wonderful. Jenny?
Yeah, hey everyone. I'm Jenny, and I help head up community stuff at Blockstack. And it's been awesome the last few months just seeing all of the progress that the working groups have made. So I'm pretty involved in helping our core community members coordinate on working groups and work on some of the biggest problems that this ecosystem is facing. Particularly interested in governance as well. I think Blockstack is doing a lot of special stuff, and the work that this group is doing in particular is going to be key to just making sure that that work is successful, especially ahead of the Stacks 2 mainnet launch, which is coming up pretty soon, and the testnet launch, which is coming up this week. So it's been really great working with everyone, and I'm happy to help everyone keep coordinating this awesome work that we're doing.
Thanks, Jenny. We're super thankful to have your contributions as well. And yeah, thanks for the reminders. A lot of exciting stuff happening in the Blockstack community right now. Lots to talk about. Brittany.
Hey, yeah, so I work at Blockstack PBC right now doing strategic partnerships, and I'm going to be actually leaving PBC soon to help start the new entity that is the foundation, which is where we'll have a lot of this governance action sort of happening, and more focused on developer education. So really excited to be able to work with this group to, one, kick off that entity, but also the ongoing, decisions and governance as the project evolves. So thanks.
Awesome, super exciting. Thank you, Brittany. Juliet?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Juliet. I am a former lawyer, a startup founder, and in the Blockstack community, I'm an evangelist and an app founder as well, and part of the governance working group, and helping out here, helping Lane and Jason to whatever they need help with. I'm passionate about privacy and all the things you were talking about at the beginning of the call, and I'm excited to see what's happening next with Blockstack and all the different areas and working groups, as well as the Stacks Foundation.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, I definitely echo a lot of your sentiments. Let's go to Matt.
Hi, everyone. Matt Korincic. I'm based here in New York. I've been interested in Blockstack for quite a while now, and I've been a casual observer of this group since it started up. By the way, the YouTube videos are awesome because that's kind of how I've gotten up to speed, and I watched through all of them. I've been interested in governance. I kind of have a background in politics and some other things like that. And I've also gotten involved with some other governance projects. So would love to kind of contribute wherever I can.
Awesome. Yeah. Welcome to the group. Super excited to have you and your expertise here. And for anyone else who may be watching this video on YouTube, there you have it. You can jump in and join the calls as well. It's participatory. Thanks, Matt. And last but not least, Philip.
Good morning to all, and I'm happy to participate here in the governance group. I'm based in Santiago, Chile, and in South America, and so I'm interested in all this related topics about governance, as is very important in order to make all the ecosystems survive. And as our app founder, we have an application called Paradigma Crosscheck, and so we are being facing the challenge of, if this ecosystem doesn't survive, then will affect us. So that's also very important for us to participate. And I've been involved in my few years of experience in many many of these governance institutions in Latin America mainly, and also in the world, but most of them are in the betterment of the world. So I'm happy to see ways of helping if there's a possibility. So it's wonderful to participate, and participation is one of the key aspects that have been promoted here in this group, and also all the working group that we have seen in Blockstack. So I'm very excited to see the outcome of this. And also today, in 1 hour more, I'm giving a presentation about proof of transfer here in Chile. So, and then I will dedicate one page so the people can fill up the survey that we are conducting here at the working group.
Amazing. Thanks for the update. Yeah, so my next, or I guess first agenda item is updates, stand-ups. And so Philip, I guess you kind of kicked us off here by sharing what you're up to today. Do you want to share any other updates with the group, or any blockers, anything people can help you with? Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah. What I was thinking about, the language problem, because, I've seen my own colleagues, taking, because I'm the face of the group of we are working here. So because, their English skills are much less than mine. So they can read, maybe they can write, and sometimes, it looks like the writing part also is not so fluent, but then, so then they don't participate directly. So that's one of the aspects. So we're thinking of, in terms of the survey, we should just put a message at the beginning that they should answer in their own language, and then whenever we see that, then we decide we want to translate, because so then on this page that I'm presenting, I'm just telling the people that are being involved that please just put it in Spanish if they prefer, because what we need is more the concept, the ideas, and all that. Well, that's my thinking. I've been working on that, and I've been giving these presentations in Spanish, so in order to increase the level of knowledge in Spanish, because it's a barrier here in Latin America. It's a barrier.
It seems unfair. It seems unfair that English is, the document's not in Spanish in the first place.
So I actually have a separate agenda item to talk about exactly this problem. So if you guys are okay with that, let's circle back to this point in a moment, because it is an important one. Before we do that though, does anyone else have any updates they want to share about stuff that happened over the past week, things they've been working on, things they could use help with? Feel free to just jump in.
The one thing I did do was supply Zan with the kind of notes of my Mac OS, successful battle, what you kind of need, what a casual user would need to install to run the testnet. So that's within there.
Cool, exciting. Thanks for sharing that.
No worries.
just wait a moment and see if anyone else wants to share any other updates before we move on. We made some progress on GitHub there. I think we had some open PRs in the resources repository. I know that Juliet and Jason reviewed a couple of things I had open, and I think I reviewed and merged a couple of things they had open. So there's been some consolidation of resources and notes from previous calls. Have we merged the standard operating procedures document yet? I can't remember. I think it has been merged, right?
Yeah, that should be in that one. I believe lives in the project management repository. So I can try and drop a link into that real quick.
Go for it. Yeah, so that's one little piece of progress over the past week. Check this document out if you haven't had a chance yet. It kind of, we just want to make sure there's no bottlenecks and make sure everything is as open as possible and make sure that anybody can jump in and help with the project management and help with things like running calls and helping out with the working group. So we try to document that stuff. There's the link. Thank you, Jason. Okay, if there's no other updates, then the next topic is the community survey. We discuss this every week. I'll double check the numbers again now, but as, yeah, let me pull up the numbers. Okay, so I see 45 responses. And so that we had started with, I think, 8 from inside the working group. So if my math is not wrong, that's 37 since we released it, which is pretty solid. Yeah, when this topic comes up on the calls, I usually say something along the lines of, you know, what's our target and when do we want to start looking at the results and what do we want to do with them? I opened an issue in the PM repository laying out exactly those questions, I think yesterday. So people could share their thoughts there. Go ahead. Yeah, hi, Jenny.
Yeah, quick note on that. So the quarterly updates email that I've mentioned before, it's been a little held up, but it's meant to go out today. So I know I say this all the time, but there should be an uptick in responses once that goes up or goes out.
Perfect. Thank you, Jenny. That's super exciting. Yeah, so maybe since there's, let's wait another week to discuss the survey because I think we'll have a lot more information this time next week. Okay, the next topic is the blog post outline. This is something that I believe Jenny proposed a few weeks ago, and just reading what's on the agenda, Jason opened a project board to organize some of the outstanding tasks, which Jenny had opened, and a lot of that was kind of looking for feedback on different questions that could feed into the post. Yeah, Jenny or Jason, or I guess anyone else, do you guys want to share any thoughts or updates on this blog post?
Sure, I'll just jump in real quick on the structural side. So as far as we were looking at things in GitHub, we had just some general issues that were calling for some written content. And in the last call, we talked about possibly making this like an ongoing thing if we were to do a once a month type release or just find ways to get this into a broader overview that people can look at. So that's the idea behind the project board. And I'll try and get a little link up to that as well. But basically, you know, it's just a quick way to say, hey, this is a topic I think would be great to share with everyone and a way to kind of gather that content across the group. And then, Jenny, did you have anything else to add? Did you get a chance to look at that yet?
No, nothing else to add really other than, you know, encouraging folks to just drop in notes where they can. Like I've mentioned before, they don't even need to be like complete, perfectly written pieces or anything. I think whatever we can put together would probably make for a pretty good piece since this group has already done so much. So if you can, just get some thoughts on this week and I can start putting together a skeleton of an update for this blog.
What's the blog about specifically?
Oh, I'm sorry, what was that?
What's the blog about specifically, or is it a general sort of overview of the whole Blockstack trip?
A general overview of what we've done as the Stacks governance.
Right, yeah, okay.
Just a way to kind of get some of those updates out there. And one thing I started looking at this morning that was really interesting too, I wanted to share with everyone. Looking back at the original blog post that Brittany put and all the comments there, and definitely making sure you read through the interviews that Lane did, because both have some information that I've noticed every time I look back at it after 2 weeks to a month, I start to get new insights, and it kind of gives us an idea if we're headed the direction we originally thought. So 2 more little things to look at if you're to write about on what we've done already.
Thanks, Jason. That's a good point. Yeah, I think these things are all part of our knowledge base, so to speak, and I think it's testament to the breadth and depth of contributions we've had. I know this is a young initiative, but there's quite a lot of great information out there, and I second what you said. Every time I kind of review some of the materials that have been shared, just as one good example, the materials that Harold shared a couple of calls ago, on the tour wampum stuff, like I just learned more every time. I feel like my IQ points are just increasing. So yeah, take a look at those things if you haven't, and definite call to action here is please drop your thoughts on what should go into the blog post. I just dropped a link into the chat here for the board that Jason put together that organizes all the open issues that are waiting for feedback, and we'll include these links in the video description as well for people who are watching this on YouTube. Okay, the next topic is the translation topic. So let's dive into that for a few minutes because it's an important one. So this came up 1 or 2 calls ago, I think, maybe 2 calls ago. I remember Philip brought up this question and kind of said, hey guys, we have this great survey out there. We're getting good feedback on it, but the survey right now has not been translated into any other languages. And, are we not missing people and responses and contributions from other communities? Just to briefly share what I've seen in other communities, like in the Ethereum community, even just adding a couple of languages like Spanish and Chinese are 2 of the most obvious ones. I've seen enormous returns in terms of engagement from the community. Philip, I think the work that you and folks like you are doing, actually hosting meetups in different locations and different languages is really important, heroic work. If I might, I was hoping to kick off by actually asking Jenny and Brittany what, if anything, PBC thinks about this, because obviously PBC has existed for a long time and you guys have run meetups around the world. Have you guys made an effort to do things like translating blog posts or technical documentation yet? And if not, like, is that something that might be helpful?
Yeah, so
I know that we, oh, sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Yeah. I was just going to speak to, we do some translations in Asia. We do have a partner who helps us on translations of blog posts and like important announcements into Chinese and our Korean communities. We have had some volunteers like translate content as it comes out, especially things like white papers into other languages like French and Spanish. So yeah, there has been a movement of volunteer translation or having things regularly translated through partners. So yeah, I think we would love for it to be as accessible as possible. I know that a lot of browsers do offer, translation on like web pages, but anything like this, like a survey or GitHub, I don't know how easy it is to translate. But I'll let Jenny also comment because I know we have a lot of Discord groups and community members who work in different languages too.
Yeah, so in addition to that, I think it's something that we want to lean into a little more, just the fact that we have so many members from different parts of the world who can help with translations. So one of the things that we're going to try with the testnet, actually, there's going to be a bounty attached to it, is helping us translate some of the existing documentation for things like mining and stacking as they sort of are added to the stack for the testnet. That will be a challenge or a bounty that community members can help with. So the 4 languages that are a priority are Chinese, Korean, Spanish, and there's another that I'm blanking on. But there are so many community members who offer to do this already that we're putting it out sort of as a call to action with a bounty attached to it. There is a risk of getting, like simple Google Translate submissions, but I think that we have enough members and enough friends who can help us check the quality and accuracy of translations before we actually move forward with one. So that'll be sort of our first test to crowdsourcing translations from community members, and we'll see how that goes. Those bounties will be released later this week, and I'm looking forward to seeing the participation in that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. Just to be clear, you're talking now specifically about, was it technical documentation for the testnet?
Yeah, technical documentation.
Got it.
And
okay, so,
which I think is probably some of the most challenging stuff, just because there are nuanced terms and things in that documentation that, you know, I'm curious how it would translate over into different languages.
Yeah, that's actually what I was exactly about to say, was that if you're able to get those things translated, then we should definitely be able to get simpler things like surveys translated.
Mm-hmm.
I shared this, I think, on GitHub. I just wanted to share it here as well. I think a great example of this is the YouTube videos that that Antonopoulos puts out. For folks who may not be familiar, Andreas Antonopoulos is a very well-known figure in the crypto and blockchain and especially Bitcoin space. And he's got literally hundreds, if not thousands, of videos on YouTube. And he has a very active community around the world who completely on a volunteer basis translate his videos into probably dozens of languages. They're some of the most watched videos and a great starting point for many people. And it helps that YouTube makes this quite simple. You can actually have, so when I say translation, in the case of YouTube, I mean their subtitles, obviously. So it's possible with an active community. So yeah, let me shut up and open the floor, and maybe other people have thoughts on this.
I've got a question. Is the survey sort of, I did the survey and that's why I'm here. That's what got me here. But I can't quite remember the actual content of it. Is it totally specific to the sort of Blockstack, you know, knowledge community, or is it a survey? It's a survey. I can't quite remember. Is it a more wide-ranging survey that anyone could take?
I think anyone who is active in any blockchain community, not necessarily Blockstack, right?
So I was thinking, you know, I'm sort of in the Ivan on Tech Academy, and sort of I'm in their forum there, and I'm in a couple of other Telegram groups, and, you know, and I was thinking about this specifically to ask about this. Is it, you know, it could be a good idea to just share it with a couple of those people, and if they liked it, they could maybe give it to their audiences or whatever, or.
Yeah, absolutely. I think by all means, we should encourage sharing of the survey with just that one caveat that if you've never seen or touched a blockchain before, you might be confused by some of the terminology. I want to highlight an idea that Philip made a few minutes ago. So I think it's a great idea. And it's that, like, okay, in the ideal case, we translate the survey into a dozen languages. That would be wonderful. But even without doing that, maybe we leave the survey in English and we just say, hey, you can respond in whatever language you want. Do people think that that's a good idea?
Depends what the ratio of understanding, and if you can, it's like with Dutch with me, I can understand pretty much 90% of Dutch, but I can't speak. I can speak like 10%, you know? So depends how that ratio is with Spanish speakers. I don't know.
Yeah, and I just wanted to come on and agree. I think in the very basic sense, the easiest thing we could do as an action item today is to just put up that notice, hey, reply in your language. Because if we got a response and we threw it into Google Translate and it didn't look right, we would have a community member or somebody who would totally help us with that. And we can even look at doing that, like maybe, hey, run a few of those by Philip for the Spanish stuff, or somebody else. That way, as long as it's not a heavy workload, I think it would be great to do overall. At least for a short-term answer.
Yeah, the reason I like the idea is, in my experience, there's definitely a large number of people in the world who feel quite comfortable reading English, but less comfortable trying to communicate outward in English.
Yeah.
And this has been my experience with the languages that I've studied as well. Now,
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, again, ideally, right, we should have these things, have some set of languages. Like, you know, the UN has its official set of 5 languages. Like, we should have our, whatever they are, our 5 languages, and make an effort to translate everything. But, you know, we don't have necessarily those resources right now.
You could have small bounties on that type of dissemination of documents once you got to a certain stage. But at this stage, it's not, you know, it's the cart before the horse, really.
But essentially, probably the base document has to be translated to different languages in order to facilitate the access of the massivity is our goal. So probably those are the base, because with that you can prepare some presentations on that. But what we have done also is some PowerPoints or presentations, slides that those had to be translated and also facilitated. So that also will, for example, Portuguese is not anywhere. So, and then I have not seen people that speak Portuguese and the big population. And then this is still a lot of work. And I went around Latin America yesterday in order to promote the presentation of today, and it's still new for all the Spanish-speaking countries. Imagine Africa and Asia and all that, and they have many languages. But the basic ones, you know, will be essential. But then if we put the survey, you know, say indication clearly, all languages are welcome, a kind of, so then because some people, you know, that I don't want to be the empire, you know, the empire is winning or whatever they say. In some countries they have this, so sometimes they see English, and so the empire is been taking over the world and all that. So if we put just a welcoming thing, so that's the thing is that sometimes we have to encourage people. But in terms of our governance, is just to invite people to answer in any language, and then we care about, you know, what they're answering. So we are kind of advancing our governance, but at least, you know, we have participation, because that's our main goal: participation as much as possible.
Just one thought that just arose based on what Philip was saying. Philip, clearly you guys have done a lot of work on translating materials, right? You mentioned PowerPoints. So proposing that maybe one of the things that we do in this working group that the foundation can do is to put bounties out, try to get basic materials like white papers and presentations and things translated, and then have a knowledge base of those that other people in, for example, the Latin America community, right, could rely on.
It really ties into the whole governance meta issue as well, you know, obviously, because, you know, the constitution of whatever the foundation is, and whatever gets developed, is multinational and multilingual. So it gets right at the core of a kind of a conundrum. You know? Well,
two things that are universal are music and computer code. So maybe it should be written in computer code. No, yes. I'm joking.
I love that.
That's I mean, I'm half joking, but that is actually kind of what Bitcoin and Ethereum communities feel. This is, you know, you have smart contracts because you don't need to have contracts written in natural language.
Well, that's when a lot of the videos I've been watching, the ones that I find most interesting are drawing a direct correlation between that we don't have to reinvent the wheel in terms of governance. There are all of these, you know, millennia of thinkers about governance, and it's the same issue. Let's not pretend it isn't. I noticed that this is totally unresolved in the crypto space. You know, looking at the Cardano video from 2019, you know, and then they're closer to launch or whatever. They don't know it. Didn't seem to have anything kind of sorted out at all. You know, seemed a lot of really interesting questions, but no real.
Definitely.
That's where we are. It feels we have a whole load of. These are the conundrums. What are we going to do about them?
So, Jason, you had asked specifically, are there any actionable items we can work on now, or is this just something to keep in mind as we move forward? Maybe a forum post would be more appropriate. Maybe that's a good place a good last piece of this topic to kind of bring up. So I proposed one idea. Another possible action item is that, jokes aside, like our founding documents, our constitution, whatever we have, maybe our code of conduct, maybe those things should be translated at the very least, right, into some minimum set of languages. Yeah. Anyone else have thoughts on other action items, or is this just a, you know, agenda item that we come back to in the future? What do people think?
Sure. So looking at what we talked about already, I'm going to have to catch up some of these notes, but it's great. I love seeing things kind of fly off as we talk. But really the quickest and most direct action item is to get that survey updated to let people know all are welcome. We'll start with that. And from there, the idea of what languages we want to choose and kind of how we want to do with the starting documents. I could see that going to issues in one way. The forum is nice because we might get a little bit broader reach as well. So I'd say let's start with the issues, and then we can always point the forum back to the issues. Keep it all in GitHub where we can, right?
So which is the best link to the questionnaire to share publicly? Is it on the forum, or is there a more?
Yeah, it's been posted a few places. I'll find it and drop it in here.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, we've got a couple more items on the agenda. So if everyone's okay with that, I'm going to just bring up the next one while I find this link. The next one is the code of conduct question. So this is something, so just to paint the picture here, we've had this as an open topic for a few weeks now. I don't know if we have discussed it on previous calls. There's also an open issue in our GitHub about a code of conduct, which I think is one of our, I'm calling it a foundational document, I think, for the Stacks Foundation, for governance, for the working group, for all these things, right? It's one of the most basic things we need. And then something happened a few days ago, which was that totally separately to this conversation, a code of conduct file was added to the main Blockstack/Stacks blockchain repository on GitHub. Maybe other folks who followed this conversation more closely could fill in more details, but my understanding was that it was actually just a copy and paste from a very simple code of conduct that the PBC staff had been working on over time, rolling out to all of the open repositories. As you know, the idea here being that having something in place is better than having nothing, which is probably true. On the other hand, there was a little bit of pushback from inside the governance working group saying, hey, if this is a community code of conduct, that process should have involved the community. And the comments I saw kind of agreed with that and said this could have been done in a different way and should have been done in a different way. And it's obviously still on the table for conversation. So I just added it to the agenda because it was one of the things that came up this past week and people seemed to care a lot about it. So I'll just open the floor and see if anyone wants to share thoughts on what happened or what could happen.
Yeah, I think that it was posted on one of the repos, and there was an issue that came up, and then everyone on the PBC, internally on PBC, the members of the development team agreed that it was a good code of conduct. And there was nothing wrong with the code of conduct in and of itself. The idea, and I think the thing that was raised by both Tadia and Dant, and then I followed up a little bit on it, was that that when these, particularly if you look internally at the code of conduct, it's across the board, not just in the repo, but it's across the board in every social. It applies to every social element that Blockstack has, and as well as if you're an evangelist, it applies to everything that you do in public. And so I think that both Dant and Tadia's concerns was that there should be some, at least some community involvement when there's a code of conduct change or when there's a new code of conduct proposed, since everyone is impacted, and it's the the community belongs to, all of these things belong to the community.
Yeah, and I agree. I saw a little bit of it come up in the chat. I haven't been able to fully dive into it, but it was an interesting thing to read. Where it's not a big deal that it's a conduct. I mean, that is, we want good things. We don't want bad things. It's pretty straightforward, and yet it just felt like the discussion was only internal. So we did feel a little left out in that way. And it mentions community managers and people who, I mean, if we're someone stepping up to do these initiatives, it would have been nice to give some input on that. But it also sounded like they kind of said that there's going to be an open issue and there's going to be open spots where we can still give feedback now as kind of a way to fix that up if we see things that need to be resolved.
Yes, I saw that it's mainly participation. So probably we should put that also on the. Do we have something like that in the survey? I don't remember, but those are the principles that we have to put in place to a community to to be healthy and prosper.
It's a paradoxical situation, isn't it? It's a sort of a backstop boilerplate thing, but also in a sort of governance issue. So it goes round and round a little bit. But yeah, I can see the procedural objections are totally valid, but it's also not a sinister thing at the same time.
Yeah, I agree with that characterization, Kieran. Thanks for sharing that. Just based on the basis of the things I read. Now, I think a lot of the folks, or maybe all the folks who are directly involved in what happened, are not part of this call right now. So, yeah. So we're kind of
hey, don't do that.
Yeah, it's kind of the peanut gallery commenting on what happened. But no, it is an important topic.
Valid, Philip, totally valid. Yeah.
Philip, to answer your question a moment ago, no, I don't think the survey speaks directly to code of conduct at all. So we could discuss if that's something we want to change. If I may try to steer the conversation in a constructive direction, I guess the question I would like to ask everyone here is what can or should we do going forward differently, or how do we kind of prevent this sort of thing from happening again?
It will happen. It's part of this, so we have to have a way to resolve them. So this is a way to cope with the problem, and I don't see it as a problem, but then the requirement or the suggestion. So then this is something that the way the governance has to have a way to deal with these issues that it will always come. So that's why it's so important to have some principles that will help in order for governance, because not all will have the capacity to define. You know.
And I want to note too, I mean, not to say anything was done wrong or anything else. I think we're early on in this initiative, right? We're asking, how's this foundation going to be formed? What's it going to control? What kind of things can we do? And we have a process around a possible SIP idea. So I think in the future, it would be nice if these went through like a formal process. Even if nobody commented and it got implemented, there would have been no issue.
I have an idea.
Closer to what we could help with.
I have an idea on that. You could just have a pending gov thread, or some space where pending gov decisions are,
So Kieran, we do have this. We have we have a proposals repository in GitHub under StacksGov, right? And then there's the SIPs.
Okay? That's why I've not sort of noticed it, because I'm sort of getting up to speed with being au fait with that. On the Discord thing, you could have a more public pending submission. What does the community think? This will be committed, comments or no, by X time.
So, okay, we have, I want to continue moving through the call because we're getting close to running out of time, and we still need to save some time for like an update from Brittany. So if I may try to summarize kind of what I'm hearing, the sentiment here, I think everyone on this call is, we have rough consensus that like the content of the code of conduct, there's nothing wrong with it necessarily, and we like the idea that it exists. We just think that the process could and probably should be a little bit different. And I think, we're suggesting that obviously this is all quite new and we're still figuring out how all the pieces fit together, the foundation and PBC and this working group and SIPs and everything else. But that we want some form of due process, right? We want some, maybe that's not the right term for it, but we want there to be sort of a, an opportunity for people to know what is being proposed and to comment on those things. And I think that's reasonable. So we will make sure we save time to talk about this topic on future calls, because I think it's an important topic.
Yeah, and I know we're moving along. I just wanted to throw in one more little thought there. And really it's trying to look at it from just the perspective, right? Like we're at testnet launch this week, we're at mainnet launch the week after. I could see why such a thing was rushed through. So I think it's more important that this was brought up as a point than it was a thing that happened. So yeah, I think it's a great thing we could grow from here.
Yeah, it's a great test case, I think, for a lot of the things that we're trying to accomplish in governance. Suggest that we work on a due process approach. Juliet just typed this into the comment box. I agree with that. Cool. Yeah, this is great. I'm happy we discussed this. We'll definitely, I'll make sure this is on the agenda for future calls. I think there's a lot more to discuss here. I apologize. I made a super last minute addition to the agenda. I forgot to add this before, and that is the SIP's process proposal. So this is the thing, the main deliverable that I've been working on for the past couple weeks. And I mentioned it on the last call, and I said that I was waiting for some preliminary feedback from the PBC side before sharing it with everyone. So that happened over the past week. And so we're ready to share this with everybody. And so I will do that later today. It's based on, again, this was talked about in the last call, but it's largely informed by things that happen in Bitcoin and Ethereum and Zcash and other communities. And so, yeah, it's also something I think that it's a very concrete, straightforward thing that the foundation can do as one of its first kind of things that it owns and delivers on. So we definitely need everyone's feedback on that. Cool. Yeah. All right. So I wanted to make sure we save some time for an update from Brittany if she has anything to share on foundation and PBC stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So I know that we just have a few minutes here, and I think it's great that we're thinking through these processes out loud and using this time to do that. It sounds like having a working group call on some of these issues would be great too, to just give more time and space. But yeah, happy to give a quick update on the foundation. So for those of you who haven't been on previous calls, the foundation the mission of that is to be able to support the ongoing educational aspects of Blockstack technology, as well as being able to do grants, potentially do revive app mining, maybe in a new form. So being able to support the ecosystem outside of the PBC organization, so the Public Benefit Corp that is Blockstack. Instead, this separate entity would be spun out and just be thinking about growing the open source community through these different efforts. So we've been exploring, legally, what kind of entity is that going to be? How does it need to be set up? And we've settled on a US-based non-stock corporation. So that's at the state level, and pursuing still what kind of potential tax exempt status may be the best fit. So that way, if we did decide that we wanted to have memberships, or if we wanted to take donations down the road, then those could be done in a tax advantage way for the donors. But in the short term, we will be a separate corporate entity that can always apply for nonprofit. So that's pretty similar. At first, I didn't realize that, if a nonprofit is a 501c3, they have a separate entity underneath it. It might be a corporation, it might be an LLC, but that nonprofit designation is something that you apply for either at time of incorporation or soon thereafter. So for us, we're applying for the corporate entity first, and then the right fit nonprofit status later, which is great. With that, we've been one of the road bumps that we hit this week was that we planned to name the foundation Stacks Foundation, but there are some similar entities like Stacks Inc. In the state of Delaware. So being able to incorporate as Stacks Foundation is actually not available. So instead we have to incorporate as a different alternative name that is kind of close to that. So we've been exploring other options, which we've used to describe Blockstack in the community before, like an open internet, a user internet, a user-owned internet, internet ownership foundation, lots of different things like that. There are a lot of organizations that exist already that have some of these similar names. So just trying to navigate what the best representation of a name is that isn't somehow blocked based on usage or already being incorporated. But the benefit is that we can always DBA or do business as Stacks Foundation, even if the underlying entity's name is like a little bit different than that. So if you're in Discord and you have other ideas on on that root foundation name, I plan to incorporate that within the next day or two, so that we can begin operating that entity fully independently from Blockstack PBC, which means that it has its own like autonomy in terms of making decisions and supporting the ecosystem, the community, without the extra layer of being attached to PBC. So that's the update of where we are with that. And I guess as Lane mentioned, one of the sort of first initiatives that I think will be really important for the foundation is to think about this Stacks improvement proposal process, like this SIP process, and the work that Lane has done there. That's where I see this group being very helpful and being able to just weigh in and kind of look at what's in there, because I think that we want that to be an independent process so that the code of the open source code of Blockstack itself is truly open source and not owned by a single entity. So the upgrades as well, not owned by a single entity. So that's my update on that, yeah.
That's really exciting. So am I hearing correctly? So this time next week, there will be another entity in the Blockstack universe and the Stacks ecosystem?
Yeah, fingers crossed. So with obviously with the current environment with COVID in the United States, it has slowed down some of these government agencies that do the, that grant you EINs and confirm your incorporation. So we will have at least filed our incorporation, but hopefully, yeah, by next Wednesday, I'll be able to report that the new entity exists.
Thanks for the update. That's exciting. Does anyone have any other questions for Brittany? I do see Juliet asked in the text here, are there some specific names that have been proposed already?
Yeah, so yeah, Stacks Foundation was the first one. Internet Ownership Foundation, Internet 3 Foundation, OpenStax Foundation, Open Internet Foundation. So all of those have been challenged or rejected based on existing entities that are too similar or could easily be confused. So it's like they could be an IP issue.
Yeah, so
yeah,
anyone...
we can take that to Discord too. I don't know if we'll be able to brainstorm on the fly in 3 minutes, but yeah, just something to think about.
Cool. Yeah, definitely. If you're watching this or listening to this and you have ideas, please share them on the Discord working group channel. Jason, I saw you unmute. What were you going to say?
Basically the same thing. You know, I would love to see this taken to, I mean, I think we get some neat ideas out of a Discord conversation, and it's a neat way to pull some involvement just to do some crowdsourcing. So I love it. And as Juliet said in the chat, you know, it's really exciting to see that we're on the edge of the birth of this foundation. We're almost there to the first steps, which is a really key point.
We need a cornerstone foundation.
Digital rights.
Yeah, how about
Fundamental Digital Rights Foundation?
Digital Rights Foundation? That's not bad. That's really not bad.
Yeah.
I have another call in 2 minutes sharp, so I'm going to go ahead and hand the hosting stuff here to Jason in case people want to stay around longer and keep talking about other stuff. And I'm going to preemptorily say thank you guys for a great call this week, and I look forward to seeing everyone next week. But please feel free to keep chatting.
Thanks,
Lane.
All right, so are there any other comments that we want to jump into based on Brittany's update there with the Stacks Foundation?
I might be a little bit behind here, but I wanted to kind of get up to speed. Like, how are we looking at this, like the governance of the foundation? Maybe that's like kind of what we're trying to figure out. But whether this is going to be like stakeholder governance, like where you're proving that you have a certain amount of stacks, therefore you're able to have influence that way, or is it something where we're looking at like a federation of leaders and we're going to take kind of soft impact, like we'll take soft insights from people and then have like some kind of representatives that are sitting on the foundation? Do we kind of have an idea which way that's going to go?
Yeah, so this is something that we've been discussing. I think the goal is to set up the MVP foundation so that it can operate independently. So that means like, you know, some of these decisions of how the community weighs in and who is representing and what does voting look like and what issues are, you know, will be voted on. All of those questions can exist once there's an entity that exists. And part of that is just because of the legality of, you know, PBC making all these decisions on behalf of a separate entity feels like a little strange versus the entity being able to actually truly be represented independently. So with the, you know, actions of like what it means, I think, you know, talk to many providers in other projects. I shared some notes with this group here. I think those are on GitHub as well. You know, I think if you take a look at like the Zcash Foundation, they've been very transparent on how their foundation works. They've created a system in which anyone in the community is able to vote on issues that are proposed. And then that vote is, you know, majority basically helps flag issues, and then the implementation of those issues comes up as something that like anyone can weigh in. So it's not necessarily a representative government, but it means that everyone has a say. And then how to implement, if there are conflicts in how that is, then there is a board that helps provide resolution on how to proceed. But for the most part, it's mostly the community that is doing the work of like making sure issues are presented. I think that's really interesting. You know, I think the Linux Foundation is another foundation that is an interesting one to model after, where there's governance of the treasury and high level, which has a large board that is elected and has a lot of members, and members can be people who are large paying members in the community, or they could be elected. And then they have a separate committee that does technical upgrades and integrations. So those two things are very separate. So you can be elected onto the technical committee, but you have to be, you know, working and doing the technical work in the community, whereas the board itself, who's thinking about the money and the future of the Linux Foundation, that happens with a different group. So some of it is like, okay, what's formal structure? Like who formally is making decisions versus how the community decisions are made. So I like the idea of having as much community input as possible, and then having ways in which community members can be part of the board where necessary, but actually the board does not have that much power in like making the issues or determining what's important or not. So some of that is exploratory, and that's exactly the type of work that I think the first 60 days of the foundation is really important to think about, like how that could be set up and circulate the proposal of how to run that in the beginning. And then, you know, we can always add complexity. I think it's really hard to take complexity away. So the simpler, the better. So like I said, I like Zcash's approach of anyone in the community, they just have to register. They don't even have to use their real name, but they have to register and show, you know, sort of like proof that they are involved with the community somewhere. They get a say in what's important and not. And as long as they aren't a bad actor, like they're not a spammer or SIPL or something, they're you know, eligible for this council of the community. So
Thank you, Brittany. That makes a lot of sense. And do we think that we're going to build the tooling on top of Blockstack, like potentially something that you would log in with a Blockstack ID and then maybe have some kind of call it like an up-down voting system or whatever gets built afterwards to serve those purposes? Do we see that as something that we want to build native on Blockstack?
I mean, I think that's like a question for the community. I think it'd be super interesting to see to do that and like have actually a tool built on the software that everyone's using. So yeah, I think that could be cool. I think voting systems are are great at giving signal, but they're maybe not great at making like absolute answers, because there's a lot of ways that they can be gamed if someone really wanted to win the vote in a certain way. But you could get a lot of signal by having a really good voting system, I believe. So I like that idea. And then if it proves that it works over the many important issues, then yeah, maybe it becomes formalized. But I think just the system itself sounds like a really cool thing to build.
So the survey that we've been trying to promote is to understand which way should be all this governance, how the people think about this governance. So as you were saying, Matt, your ways of seeing how this should be done can be also answered in the governance survey. So
And
that's
also,
why we want to have as many people, to participate in that.
I also found the materials on the forum underneath the survey. Really need to kind of go through those, and because many thoughts that I was having, obviously other people have had them, and I found that a good distillation as a sort of base point to start off, and so I got through those, and I'm having thoughts further from that now. So I intend to compile some of that too.
Awesome. Unfortunately, I've got to jump. I have another call that I'm a few minutes late for, but yeah, please continue, and I look forward to continuing this next week and in Discord. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Brittany. And just for everybody else too, some of what we're talking about here is definitely found on the GitHub. So we've been thinking through how, more of the meta conversation to a lot of this, like how do we share resources? Like right now, we obviously have a YouTube channel. We have this Zoom Pro account that we're sharing between Lane and PBC. And we were looking at possibly other technology too. Like what if we wanted to use Block Survey as a group to do our surveys? Or what if we wanted to have XOR drive to store some files? And I posted all that in an issue because I think it brought up kind of a different thing, which would be what's the best way to share a Blockstack ID as a company or an entity. So that was kind of a fun offshoot from there, but I would definitely say any of those type of thoughts, quick discussion available in Discord. GitHub is more for action items, but it's perfect for talking about that. Like what tool would we envision? How would we envision it working? Would it tie into topics like quadratic voting that we've talked about? I mean, it's really being formed at this stage. Yeah. So that kind of input is really cool.
It's incredibly exciting, by the way.
At this point, I know we have Lane and Brittany both had to jump, but we were just finishing up talking about kind of that formal update from PBC on the Stacks Foundation, the fact it's about to get started in the next week here, and some of the early stages. Anything else that anybody would like to talk about on that subject? All right, well, for those of you left on the call, we'll just go over this week was April 22nd. So next week's call will be on April 29th at the same time, 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. And at this point, we like to open up the floor. So if there's anything else that anybody would like to discuss with the group we have here or any other ideas, please feel free to share at this time. Otherwise, if we get some silence, then we'll probably end up finishing up for the day.
So I want to add in some notes to the resources page. Is that cool to just jump in there and add in a section or something like that? Obviously, following the flow.
Yeah, and that's awesome. We want as many people involved as possible, so definitely feel free to just shoot over a PR with your changes, and more than likely they're going to get it. More things I want to add, and I'll be updating the calls too, so I'll keep an eye out for that.
Awesome.
All right, well, it sounds like we don't have too much else going on here. We've got a lot of good links in the chat today, so I'll try and translate those over to our note and everything else. But thank you everybody for being on the call today. Really appreciate it. I think we got into some really fun topics, and hope you guys have a great week. I look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Cheerio.
Nice to meet you all.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.